So welcome to the inaugural program or the inaugural event of the Lady Blanka Rosenstiel Endowed Program in Polish Heritage. My name is Hugh Thomas. I'm the director of the Center for the Humanities at the University of Miami, which is overseeing this wonderful new program. And I'd like to just say a word about how this will work. It's in a webinar format. We'll have some introductions, the speaker will speak, and at any time you wish, you can bring in some questions by typing into the question and answer box that you can get at the bottom. And I will now stop sharing for a moment and turn the podium over to President Julio Frank. Let me just say a word or two. President Frank is the president of the University of Miami, of course, and has long been a leader in the field of public health. He served as Minister of Health of Mexico from 2000 to 2006. He was the founding Director General of the National Institute of Public Health in Mexico, one of the leading institutions of its kind in the developing world. Dr. Frank was also Dean of the Harvard School of Public Health for nearly 7 years before becoming the 6th president of the University of Miami, in which position he has served since 2015. So I'll now turn the virtual podium over to President Frank.
Thank you very much, Professor Thomas, and good afternoon to everyone. It is truly a pleasure to welcome you all to the University of Miami's inaugural Rosenstiel Endowed Program in Polish Heritage. This unique program to celebrate Polish heritage is significant on various levels. It helps to share the rich heritage of Poland and promote the many contributions of Polish Americans by bringing luminaries from a variety of fields, like our inaugural speaker, Artur Szemliewski. And these luminaries will be here to share their insights, their expertise with members of our university community. In so doing, this program supports the University of Miami's commitment to mutual understanding among cultures, and this also enriches our community. Previously, this program existed only at the University of Virginia and Florida International University. So I would really like to express my deepest gratitude to the American Institute of Polish Culture and its founder, president, chair, and chief executive, Lady Blanka Rosenstiel, a pillar in the Polish community, for bringing it to the University of Miami. This latest partnership further deepens the long-standing relationship with Lady Blanka that the university is so fortunate to enjoy. As all of you know, the Rosenstiel name graces both a building on our medical campus and, more prominently, our School of Marine and Atmospheric Science, a world leader in science discovery and sustainability. The university is ever grateful to Lady Blanka for encouraging her late husband Louis's generous philanthropic support to the school. Lady Blanka's commitment to the U is further exemplified by her service, which has included roles as a member of the university's Board of Trustees and the Rosenstiel School's Dean's Advisory Committee. As the university approaches its centennial in 2025, we are embarking on a brighter, bolder, and more ambitious journey forward. Programs like the Rosenstiel Endowed Program in Polish Heritage help bolster our efforts to shape a better future for the university, our community, and the world. Thank you again to Lady Blanka Rosenstiel and the American Institute of Polish Culture for making this program possible. And thank you all for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of this, what I'm sure will be an exceptional program today. And now I'm pleased to turn the program back over to Dr. Thomas with my gratitude for the Center for the Humanities at the College of Arts and Sciences for putting this extraordinary event together.
Thank you, President Frank. So we'd like to take a few minutes, as I said, to recognize still further Lady Blanka Rosenstiel and the late Louis Rosenstiel. The Rosenstiels have been tremendous donors, have given over $100 million to the Rosenstiel Foundation, to various educational entities, at the University of Miami, we are most thankful for their contributions to the Rosenstiel Marine School. And this is a recent picture of that. And to give you an idea of how much their donation mattered, I'd like to show a few earlier pictures, which also give some idea of the history of the Rosenstiel, but we'll also give an idea of how far we've come, as I said. So this is an early depiction of some students doing a dive boat with very old equipment. More tellingly, this is the original Marine lab. And this is the first building of the new school on Virginia Key. So in a sense, if you compare that to the original photograph, it does give a very strong sense of how much we've grown. Lady Blanka Rosenstiel was born in Warsaw, Poland. After World War II, she studied art in Brussels. In 1956, she moved to the United States, and in 1967, she married the late Louis Rosenstiel, chairman of Shinley Industries, a humanitarian and philanthropist. Lady Blanka's avid interest in the arts, dedication to helping young artists, and desire to promote Poland's heritage while fostering culture in her American homeland prompted her to establish the American Institute of Polish Culture, AIPC, in Miami in 1972. In 1998, Mrs. Rosenstiel was appointed an honorary consul of the Republic of Poland. She became the first Polish consul in the history of Florida. The AIPC sponsors many cultural and educational programs, including lecture series, scholarships, art exhibits, festivals, conferences, film and theater showings, and many more. AIPC published over 20 titles of books about Polish history and famous people. Good News Magazine is the American Institute of Polish Culture's yearly publication highlighting its projects and events. The Institute's largest fundraiser is the International Polonaise Ball, gathering many distinguished guests from all over the world. Next year, the Institute will commemorate its 50th anniversary, and the ball will celebrate this momentous occasion on February 12th, 2022. And so this is just a picture of the ball and some of the other accomplishments of AIPC. In 1969, the University of Miami honored philanthropist Mr. Louis Rosenstiel with a dedication of the Dorothy H. and Louis Rosenstiel Medical Services Building of the School of Medicine, and the changing of the name of the Institute of Marine Sciences to the Dorothy H. and Louis Rosenstiel School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences. This dedication honored a $12 million gift from Mr. Rosenstiel, the largest single gift the university had yet received. And here are some pictures from the dedication ceremony. And here we'll end the presentation with another famous slide of an early classroom, and with a thanks to the people who helped us. And now I'd like to turn it over just for a minute to Lady Blanka herself to say a word or two.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for such a lovely introduction. It is hard to believe how much time has passed and that we are going to celebrate our 50th anniversary of the American Institute of Polish Culture. I am thrilled that today we are inaugurating the new lecture series on Poland. It was always my dream to promote the history, the people, and the culture of Poland. My mission in life is to share the rich heritage with all, especially at fine universities such as University of Miami. I am glad we are starting this lecture with the theme Beyond the Earth, as I am always reaching for the stars. Even if they seem far away, I never give up. Thank you very much.
And thank you. And again, thank you so much for endowing this series. Now I'd like to turn the virtual podium over to Dean Leonidas Bacchus, who will introduce our speaker for today.
Thank you, Hugh. I mean, it's always a pleasure to talk about the intersection of science and humanities. And I think here we have a special day where we see that in action. And thank you, Lady Rosenstiel, for making this possible for us. So the inaugural lecture starts with the Polish-born Artur Chmielewski, who has had a long fascination with outer space. He was so inspired by NASA as a boy that he was determined to work with the revered institute someday, and he achieved his dream. On the way, he worked almost every possible job that had anything to do with space, both in Poland and America, earned degrees in mechanical engineering and computer science from the University of Michigan and the University of Southern California, who may have actually overlapped for a few years, the University of Michigan, but probably different campuses. Art has built space instruments, developed interplanetary spacecraft, managed billion-dollar missions, and organized a lab to construct a space telescope the size of a football stadium. His missions, these include Ulysses, Galileo, Cassini, Deep Space One, Space Technology 6 and 8, TechSat 2, Mars Telecommunication Orbiter, Rosetta, had traveled to the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and landed on a comet. He has worked on capturing space images of cryovolcanoes, black holes, and extrasolar planets, has developed advanced technology software and hardware, was a consultant to Hollywood movies, and designed space sculptures. He's currently employed by the California Institute of Technology at Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which is the NASA center in Pasadena, California, which is responsible for robotic space flights, and where he's a project manager on the Grosvenor program, inflatable antenna flight experiment, and the cryo-cooler flight experiment. For the last 2 years, Mr. Chmielewski has been also an advisor to the Polish Ministry of Development, which is responsible for the Polish space program. He works with the Polish Space Agency and Polish universities and firms in creating the first Polish interplanetary mission. Through his private company, Spartan Space, he's helping Polish space companies to enter the US market and Polish students to get summer jobs at NASA. However, no matter how much he is able to accomplish in space exploration in Poland, he's known for being the son of Henryk Chmielewski, who is better known as Babcio Chmiel, the creator of popular comics involving the most famous Polish monkey, Titus, or Titus actually. We're pleased to welcome Artur Chmielewski to present today at the inaugural program for the Lady Blanka Rosenstiel Endowed Program in Polish Heritage with his presentation entitled Beyond Earth, Let's Go and What We Expect in Space. Art. You're muted, Art.
This will be better now. Thank you so much for inviting me. This is really an honor. I prepared a short presentation, and at the end, folks who are attending will be able to ask questions, and I highly encourage them. This is just, the slides are just a teaser of what's gonna be happening in space in the next 10, 20, 30 years. And we have some students, so that will be interesting probably to them, what jobs they're gonna get in space as soon as they graduate, if that's what they are interested in. So let me share my presentation here. 1 second. Here we go, let's put it. Very well. You should be able to see it now. I have very difficult last name in this country, not such a difficult name in Poland, but I have, due to my dad being a cartoonist, of course, my dad always thought about jokes. There was anything that he could turn into a joke. He always, that was always his goal. So my initials are very easy, ABC, and that's what they call me at NASA. Hey, ABC. So let's chat about what's going to be going on in space. Here I am pictured with a twin of a Curiosity rover at JPL, which is a center of NASA. And this is what this Curiosity looked like when it was on the surface of Mars. We use the twin to test certain situations, difficult situations that we may encounter on Mars, and test certain commands, and then we send it to the machine on Mars. Now we have another rover on Mars, even more sophisticated. It's called Perseverance, and Perseverance carried a tiny little helicopter called Ingenuity on Mars. And this is what at JPL, this is what both Ingenuity and Perseverance looked like when we were building it in our clean room. You can see in the back, straight in the back, you can see these large black wheels of Perseverance, and then there's a table in front of it, kind of looks goldish, and this is where the helicopter is. And the helicopter was mounted underneath the rover. So the rover landed and deployed the helicopter, and now the helicopter has been flying on Mars. And I understand we have a lot of students online, and most of them may be not PhDs in astrophysics. So I want to tell you what jobs you could get if in the space program, right? Of course, JPL and NASA employs many engineers, computer programmers, physics majors, geology majors, but is that the end of the list? All the STEM fields, all the technical fields? Absolutely not. We also have folks from environmental science, because we have to also care about our planet. When we launch our spacecraft, we have to know, and we launch it from Kennedy Space Center, we have to be concerned if there is an environmental impact of such a launch. And these are environmental science students are welcome to help us with these kind of assessments. We also have to, we do what we call planetary protection. We cannot carry a bacteria to Mars or another planet when we're looking for life there, because then we would be accused, of course, that we found the bacteria that we brought with us. So, so there are these jobs. We employ artists, animators, graphic illustrators, because not only I say here that we use this for public outreach, but also for internal communication. I love to have an artist always on my team, because then I have the scientists tell the artists what these accomplishments on the given planet will look like. And by explaining it to artists, just by sheer process, they start communicating with each other, I noticed. We also have psychologists. We have people who study literature and help us express ourselves better and write better proposals. We have folks who study politics, because we're funded by taxpayers. We have economists and business people who write contracts, and so biochemistry, chemistry, biology, mathematics, and HR. Somebody has to hire these people. Somebody has to give them competitive salaries. Somebody has to decide, what's appropriate in how to create a better work environment. So I am sure whatever is your major, you can find a job at NASA and you can help us with this space program. So I work at the NASA center called JPL, Jet Propulsion Lab. It's in Pasadena, California. NASA has 10 such centers, and the red dot that you can see here in California and Southern California is JPL. And of course, you in Miami have even more beautiful beaches. So the picture on the bottom left doesn't impress you, but what is nice about living in Pasadena is that it's almost equidistant from skiing in the winter time as it is from the beach. So please come visit me, go to the beach. Well, maybe you're not so interested in the beach if you live in Miami, but go skiing and then come back, and let me give you a tour of Jet Propulsion Lab. JPL also has 6,000 employees, but it has several families of deer who walk around and eat our flowers at our lab, and the director likes them. We don't scare them away because we feel that the employees de-stress by petting. It's like a continuous walk around petting zoo. This picture I took, and I remember it very well because the engineer who took this picture later, he took this picture of me petting the a little fawn, and then he said, you know, it would be very difficult to build a space helmet for deer. And I said, yeah, sure, yeah. But I was thinking, well, here's a problem that does not need solution. But, you know, these are the NASA engineers. If you come to JPL, it also will be a little bit of traffic because the joke is that we try to assemble sentences out of personal license plates as we drive into JPL. So if you go to a parking lot of JPL, that's also very entertaining. I've been at NASA for 40 years. 40 years. I took part in 15 space missions. Some of them are pictured here. And my current missions are, I'm working on the next helicopter to Mars. And this one will be size of a car. It's no longer a toy. It's not a shoebox. It will be a large flying machines. And this helicopter will get to all the places the rovers can. There are caves on Mars. So of course, there are huge scarps. There are ice caps in the north and south. There's very difficult terrain that we still want to explore. With the rovers, we only get to places which are fairly easily accessible. I'm also working on a mission that is extremely exciting to me, because there is nothing better and nothing more exciting than use space technology for the benefit of Earth. And this is exactly what we're doing with the OASIS mission that has just started. It's sponsored by the country of Qatar. And this is a mission where we use the radar that we built to look for water on Mars. And now what are we doing with it? We're going to be flying, orbiting Earth and trying to assess how thick are the polar ice caps. And that, of course, is very important because that controls the sea level rise. You in Miami and Florida should be very interested in this topic. How much will water rise due to melting of the ice in the North and South Pole, and especially in Greenland? We also will be flying over the deserts and trying to find aquifers, shallow aquifers, deposits of water underneath the sand. And that's, of course, hugely important in Sahara and Arabian Peninsula, where there's 450 million people living. We don't want to run out of water. So that's an exciting mission. This is an earth science mission. I mostly work on solar system exploration, but when we can bring the technology and benefit humankind here on Earth directly and quickly, that's amazing. I also recently wrote a book and described some of these missions that I just briefly mentioned here. It's written in Polish, but if you or your kids read Polish, I highly encourage it. I describe in 10 chapters, 10 of my missions and some of the problems we had and how we overcame them. And the message is that you can, this is especially a message to the kids and young people, hey, you know, there isn't a problem that you cannot conquer. And so if you speak Polish, I would like you to read this book. Now we're getting it translated, and we'll try to publish it in the United States. So let me take you on a really quick tour around the solar system. And this will be my private tour. This is not an official NASA tour. So please, when you hear something controversial, don't call Washington, don't call NASA headquarters, and don't, Art Chmielewski said this and that. I will be a private citizen on this tour, because now I can speculate. What's going to happen in space 20, 30 years from now is a little more speculative, right? So let's go quickly around the solar system. This is an eye chart, but all it shows is all the missions that NASA is flying around the solar system, and we're going to all the destinations. The chart on the left, on the bottom, is all the missions to Mars. There are some orbiting missions you see on the top, and there are rovers on the bottom, and these different colors portray missions in different, it's either they are flying, they are in operations, or they are in different stages of development. But there are, I think, 38 missions that are operating right now in the solar system. And what does NASA do? Why do we send a lot of these missions? Well, we're trying to learn about our environment. We're trying to learn about Earth through studying other planets. And also, we have a huge challenge. We're trying to see if there is life beyond Earth. And until recently, maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, we were looking for these places knowing that water and oceans are a great place for life to originate. We're looking for planets, mainly planets, with oceans on the surfaces. And we thought that they have to be, for the water to exist on a planet, of course, it would have to be not too far away from the sun, because then the water would freeze, and not too close because it would evaporate. So there was very tight limits of where we could look for life. But all of that changed when we discovered these hydrothermal vents on the bottoms, very, very deep, where there's no sunlight. And nevertheless, there are a lot of organisms. There's life flourishing there. And at the same time, what we discovered is that there's a lot of water in the solar system, a lot of moons of different planets carry water. It's just that it's hidden under this ice cap. You can see here, there's an ice cap, which is nice for protection of life from the radiation. And there are all the ingredients. There is appropriate chemistry, hydrocarbons, there's energy from this thermal vents, from moons pulsing, and there's water. These are all the ingredients that are necessary for life. So we started looking at places like a moon of Jupiter, Europa, which on the outside looks like an icy moon. And then it turns out that it carries liquid water underneath. And it does have these thermal vents. We are seeing from some of these moons jets shooting out. So that means that there is liquid water underneath. And then, of course, there's a question if there is life. There's the moon of Saturn, Enceladus, and you can see how these vents turn into jets and shoot out material into the outer space. And so we want to go there. We want to explore these oceans. We call them ocean worlds. But that takes very clever robots. For example, if you want to land on Enceladus, we would need special robots that can get into the cracks and get into this ocean. We call them eels. They're under development at JPL. And I want to show you what these eels would look like. So these were robotic eels. If you want to work on this kind of technology, and as I said, it takes many different professions to make it happen, please apply to NASA. We need a lot of bright people. We also will be flying to a moon of Saturn called Titan. Titan also has ocean underneath, but it also has lakes on the outside, on the surface. And there will be a mission flying there called the Dragonfly, which will be a huge nuclear-powered drone that will be exploring the surface of Titan. There's even as far as from the sun as Neptune, there are ocean worlds. It's not on Neptune. Neptune is an icy gas giant, but it has a moon called Triton, and Triton is an ocean world. So we'd like to go there too. There's recently, until recently, Venus was considered to be too hot and hellish of a place. It's extremely hot on the surface. It has sulfuric acid, it has high pressure. So we did not expect any life on Venus. But recently, it turns out that there were some indicators that there may be some life forms existing in the clouds of Venus. So we're planning on sending what we call an Aerobot, a balloon robotic explorer that could be testing these aerosols in the clouds for possible habitability. It's very difficult to discover life itself, as you can imagine, but at least we can see that life is possible there, and then through more sophisticated probes, you can eventually discover if there is life in a given environment. We also discovered that what we thought are rocky and dry places, like asteroid, also contain a lot of water. Here's a picture of asteroid Ceres, and you can see this white spot. As we came close with the spacecraft Dawn, we noticed it, and as we came closer, it turned out to be maybe remnants of water brine that that surfaced and froze on the surface of this tiny little world. So there's also ingredients for life on asteroids. But to explore such a place, it's very difficult because the distances are vast. Here's a close-up of this place, right? So if you were planning a mission, you would want to land maybe very close to these salts and examine them. But the whole crater in which in the middle of are these interesting areas that can harbor life is 90 kilometers. So this is the distance that Curiosity in 6 years covered, right? So we have to build robots that move quickly, maybe hop, so we can understand the white spot. We can understand the deposits inside of the crater. We can jump out of the crater. Rovers are not able to do this. And then maybe you want to go 600 kilometers to Ahuna Mons, which is a cryovolcano. It shoots out not magma, but ice. That's an interesting place to explore, right? So for that, we're building different robots at JPL, hoppers, flyers, rovers, robots that communicate, robots that split into several different components. It's very demanding, it's very challenging, but it's also a lot of fun. Another thing that is changing, and for you students who are just graduating, space will look very differently 5, even 10 years from now. And the reason for this, we call democratization of space. Why? Because anybody nowadays can send a spacecraft. Your university, if you put your students together, can send a CubeSat into Earth orbit. Here is the picture of the first interplanetary spacecraft called Mars Cube 1. They changed our view of tiny spacecraft exploring space. And now, this is another picture of Marcos being built in the lab. And now, universities, private companies, smaller companies, spacecraft no longer cost $500 million. They can be built for 50, 100. $500,000. And recently, I even worked with companies and universities in Poland to prepare Polish mission to Mars. So this is why we call democratization of space, because now space is accessible to the entire world, and you can work for a company that will be building such flying robots. Of course, we're preparing to start a base on Mars and on the moon. First, there will be a robots will build the habitat for humans, and then we'll send eventually humans to Mars. We have to do this because, you know, we have to send humans to different places because we're not treating our planet as well, and it's becoming worse. But the main issue is that sooner or later we will be hit by an asteroid. I don't know if it will be in 200 years, if it will be in 1,000 years, or it will be 65 million years, as it was in case of dinosaurs, but we will have a hit on Earth. We live in a dangerous neighborhood, and then it would be better if the human species survived, and that's why we're preparing to build these bases. You students who are graduating, you'll see also a lot of private enterprises in space very soon. There'll be hotels in space. Right now, you can fly for different amounts of money. You can fly for 5 minutes to space for roughly $1 million. Maybe the price will come down to $250,000. You can fly for a longer time. Russians will charge you about $25 to $80 million, depending how long you want to stay in orbit. Even NASA will turn eventually the International Space Station into private hands, and you'll be able to fly there. It will cost you, right now it's expected about $30,000 a day, but you can go there. And of course, you know, I always laugh when there are pictures like this shown of hotels in orbit, because to me, the greatest fun of going to orbit is the microgravity. So why would you want to have a room that looks exactly like a hotel on Earth, right? And look at the pillows here. What are they? Attached by Velcro? So, and would you want to have standard lamps and furniture and beds? No, you want to float around the room. And well, astronauts tie themselves to the walls because when you're sleeping and bouncing off the walls, you wake up. But microgravity is what it's fun. And maybe hotels will not be the commodity that will happen first. I think that as soon as folks who are into gambling will recognize that maybe if they're in space, they don't have to pay taxes, that will very quickly we'll get casinos in space, unfortunately. And I saw this picture of a casino orbiting Earth. Looks very cute, but it's totally ridiculous. And so besides science and all these scientific discoveries and expanding our knowledge and looking for life and sending humans to other places to assure that human species survive, why we do space? And we do space because it's good business. By pushing engineers, programmers, all the scientific personnel at NASA centers, we get a lot of invention, we get a lot of patents. And the best example is something that everybody has in their hand or in their pocket or on their desktop, right? Is a smartphone. Smartphone would not exist if it weren't for the space program. It has 8 critical technologies that came from the space program, either NASA or Department of Defense and Department of Energy. So an iPhone is doing very well. iPhone, for example, iPhone generated enough income that it would be the 8th richest or 9th richest country in the world. And then there are a lot of, it's estimated that all of us use about 16 space technologies every day. We just don't even realize that. For example, my center, JPL, gets about $250 million a year from royalties, from inventions, from equity in the new startups. It's an economic, NASA is also an economic machine. And this is why it creates all these small businesses, all new products, all new inventions. And then students like from, for example, University of Miami, find deployment then in these companies, again, being in business administration, in HR, in financing, right? Not only it's for engineers and programmers, it's a huge economic machine. And that's why maybe there's a fair amount of support for NASA and its goals in exploring the universe. So this is a sign that is in front of my office of JPL. And I think that this would be a good motto for everybody, especially you young people at university, graduating, going into business, starting your own companies. But this is what guides us at JPL. But I think that it's a good motto for all of you. So I encourage all of you to be interested in space, pursue space jobs, send me a resume, and support space and space exploration, because I think that that's one of these things that is not controversial. It's good for the planet, it's good for the economy, it's good for the entire humanity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're now going to turn to the question and answer. But before we get to that, I'll apologize for the slight hiccup I had. Even after a year and a half of doing Zoom things, Zoom continually presents new surprises for me. So in any case, more important, I want to say that I really appreciated the fact that you included arts and humanities into the whole business of what's going on in the space program. It might be useful if you stopped Art sharing the presentation, and so you can be seen more fully. As a reminder, if you have any questions, and we already have some, you can type them into the Q&A. I'm gonna take advantage of my own position and ask a question first, which is that I've, even though I'm a historian, I followed the space program for a long time. When I was a kid, there was a lot of optimism about how fast we would have colonization of Mars, colonization of outer space, and sort of turned out that space is a lot harsher environment for humans. I think microgravity would be fun for a short time. I'm not sure how much people would like to live in it. And so what do you think would be kind of the timeline for human settlement outside of Earth?
Well, it depends where you want to go. I'm sure there will be bases on the moon soon. And as soon, I'm talking about 10, 15 years. There will be more moon landings within a few years. And as a matter of fact, we know that our first woman will land on the moon. That's what NASA announced, that the first astronaut that will be now landing on the moon and a first person on Mars will be a lady. So maybe there are some ladies here who are listening to this presentation who will be this, or some young people who will be the first astronauts on Mars. That will be exciting. So moon is near term, and the moon will be taken over by a world industry. There will be all kinds of scientific endeavors on the moon. Mars is a little bit more difficult to colonize. and it's a little bit more difficult even to get there, and because it's a different situation. When we go to the moon, moon is always at the same distance from Earth. It's orbiting Earth. So we can go there in a day. Well, it may take 3 days, but then we can come back in a day or 3 days. It's always the same distance. So we can fly the astronaut back and return him or her immediately. Mars is a little bit different because Mars and Earth rotate around the sun. And when we send our astronauts, or we send our spacecraft robots, our rovers to Mars, we pick a time when this distance is the shortest, right? And it takes about 6-7 months to get there. However, once you land, at the moment when you land, Mars is almost on the other side of the sun. As a matter of fact, soon after landings, we even lose communications for about 3 weeks because it's exactly in opposition. It's exactly on the other side of it. Here's Mars and here's Earth, and my head would be the sun, right? So it's a different situation. So now if we want to fly back to Earth, then it would take us long time. We don't want to put have astronauts in this tiny capsule for such a long time. So what we would do, we would land on Mars, we would wait for about a year and a half on the surface for the planets again to approach each other, and then we would come back to Earth. So flying to Mars is a 4-year proposition. It's not a few days. So we would have to live there. So there has to be a base, and base would be first built by robots, and then it would be populated by the astronauts. Also, because it's 4 years, then we cannot send a single person. There are so many different jobs that have to be, that are required for 4 years. You can imagine it's not only a matter of engineer, PhD in astrophysics, or geologist flying over there to examine rocks, but what if you have a toothache? You have to have a dentist. What if you have an appendix problem? You have to have a surgeon. You have to have all of these different professions, right? And you cannot fit all these different professions into one person. We think there will be 4 people, right? So it's a difficult problem. The problem another problem is that NASA, and that's why I hope that maybe SpaceX will get to, astronauts from SpaceX will get there quicker, is because NASA will have to practically assure that the astronauts will be safe, that they will be healthy. So it has to be preceded with tremendous amount of tests, medical examinations, tests in orbit, what they're gonna eat, how, like you said, space is not such a friendly thing, and the microgravity affects muscle atrophy. You're not using muscles, so muscles are deteriorating, your bone structure deteriorates. So this is a tough environment. But NASA would have to assure that these 4 astronauts will be healthy, that will be happy, there will be, right, live TV from their base every day, the world will be watching. So that's a very difficult and expensive problem. SpaceX, if Mr. Elon Musk wants to fly there tomorrow by himself and buy even a one-way ticket, right, he can do this as a private industry. So so my personal guess is that maybe private industry will get to Mars before NASA. Right now we have plans, loose plans of getting there in 2033. The first mission will be like Apollo, I think it was 10. We fly around Mars. We don't actually land. We may land on one of the moons, Phobos, or probably Phobos, lower gravity, no atmosphere, so it's much easier to land and take off again. But the first mission will not land, human mission will not land on Mars. The second will, and it will be, sometime in about 14, 15 years.
Thanks. So I'm going to summarize a bunch of questions about the whole issue of private enterprise. And what do you see as some of the pluses? And I think some people are asking also about the minuses. What are some problems that might create?
Yes. Well, the pluses are definitely huge to NASA, because NASA wants to only do things that are extremely difficult, too risky for the industry, first of a kind, right? We land a rover, first rover on Mars. Well, that's a very risky, expensive endeavor, so we will do it. But we would want a future exploration to turn over to companies, institutes, just like SpaceX or Blue Origin, because that's a just natural progression. So the benefits of this is that, for example, SpaceX is supplying the rockets. NASA doesn't want to build rockets. NASA does not want to be in a business of trucking, right? So this is amazing, and it also creates, like I said, it boosts the economy when these private companies, space companies, are created. Other benefits of what I talked about, for example, democratization of space, is that when, for example, even a small company can send a little tiny spacecraft to orbit over there, even a store in space. Now they can get a lot of interesting information. They can measure how much pollution they are creating, all right, and do something about it. But they can also look at their parking lot and see if there are more red cars coming. Where are they coming from? The east, from the west? Where are the customers coming from? So that increases right, the productivity of the country. Of course, there are negative sides of that too, because we're sending a lot of spacecraft into orbit. That creates a lot of space junk. We have to get, just like on Earth, we have a traffic control, and we have Department of Motor Vehicles that controls, the quality of your cars, the pollution, the smog. We have to start doing this for space, because we're creating a lot of space junk. Especially astronomers complain about it, because they want to see these tiny little specks, right, with their observatories far, far away in the universe, reflecting very little light. But there are these bright objects, satellites, going into the view of the telescope every so often and blinding them. So these are the negatives, but certainly it's a boom. Space is a boom to the economy.
So I'll say that I'm sort of a pro-space program person, but one of the criticisms I've heard, and it's maybe touched upon in a couple of the questions, are if we get sort of so outward focused, what about, will that prompt us not to solve problems on Earth? Are we maybe going to give up on Earth to sort of go abroad, to go to outer space? What do you think about that?
Well, it's still by far the best planet to live on. I think that space also helps us understand that we have to be good to this planet, because we're measuring how much the water rises in the oceans. We measure the carbon dioxide and methane releases, right? We measure pollution. We see from space how ice caps are melting, right? So that tells us things. We have very limited view with our eyes from where we sit, where we live. It's good to see the global picture. For example, we at NASA, when we, for example, I worked on the Cassini mission, and we took a picture from Saturn of Earth, right? With Saturn being closer to the lens, and Earth being a tiny little dot far away, and there's this vastness of nothing around it. That makes you think, if we're the species here inhabiting this tiny little blue dot, and there's nothing around you, shouldn't you be good to the planet? Should you also get along with everybody who lives on this planet and work together, as opposed to, opposing each other and getting into conflicts? So there's a philosophical value in this. I think that picture of Earth from the moon taken by the astronauts, and seeing how thin when you look up, it seems like our atmosphere is infinite. So what's the big deal? You have a V12 engine and keep it running in a parking lot. But when you see it from space and you see that our atmosphere is tiny and thin, now it starts making you think about the pollution. But to answer your question, still Earth is by far the most friendly place. We can go to Titan. It has atmosphere, it has water. The temperature is 94 degrees C, Kelvin. So this is like minus 180 degrees C, right? Very, very cold. Mars has atmosphere that is about 1% of ours, and you have to wear breathing apparatus. And also it's a little lighter. So yeah, let's take care of our planets. Let's not think that we found a substitute somewhere else.
Well, we're going to go a little bit past 1 o'clock because we have lots of good questions, but I realize that people will have maybe teaching obligations, other meetings, so feel free to quietly drop off, one of the few advantages of Zoom. As we go on with some of the very interesting questions. And one of the first questions was, would you consider being a passenger on one of these private outer space ventures, assuming you had the money to pay for it?
Well, that's what I thought when I was younger. But then I quickly realized two things. First of all, I realized, you know, when I go to amusement parks and they have these spinners and all these different rides, and you know, the acceleration of going into space and living in space is a little tricky. I realized quickly that maybe I don't have the right stuff. But also later, I had the pleasure of training astronauts for when they had to deploy our spacecraft out of space shuttle. And life of an astronaut is not as exciting as maybe it's built to be. For example, I had to train once an astronaut to undo one bolt, right? It took us 3 days and maybe 10,000 times he had to undo the bolt, right? Because we had to prepare him to go out this on extravehicular activity. You're in space, you're spinning, so we had to put him in a spinner. We had to flash lights into him because the sun appears, disappears. We have to do it in a simulated microgravity. So we put him in a pull and he had to undo the screw in a pull. So for 3 days, we're testing undoing one bolt, right? That's not why you get 2 PhDs to do this kind of work, right? So now I leave it to other folks to go to space. I'll stay here and I'll build my robots.
Another question has to do with the whole issue of gravity. How compounds might help retain muscle mass, what other things might be done to solve that issue?
Yes, so the problem with microgravity is, of course, a lot of fun. You see the astronauts pouring a cup of coffee in front of them. It pulsates, and it becomes a perfect sphere after a while. Then they put a straw in it, right? And they suck it out, and this perfect sphere is shrinking. Okay, and then they can tumble in space. And I think that we'll have very soon a lot of exciting things happening in these hotels and then orbiting stations. You know, would you want to see a football game in 3D where you're not confined just to the surface, but the players can move in 3 dimensions, right? That would change strategy. That would be something interesting to see. But it's harsh out there. Microgravity is also your enemy. Your bone mass is shrinking, right? Your bones become more porous. In a week in space, you experience muscle atrophy, maybe even down to 40%. So you're very weak. I don't know if you noticed this, but when astronauts come back from the space station after a few months, immediately they come out of this lock, and then there are these two beefy guys that come on each side of an astronaut, and they kind of walk with him or her, right? And that's because their muscles were much weakened. Yes, they exercise, and they have to exercise a couple hours a day. They are strapped down to these treadmills, right? But still, it's a difficult thing. I think that eventually we get to the point where there will be certain set of humans who will live only in space, and the others will be living on the ground, and you will not be coming back to Earth. You will live very comfortably in space. If you have, for example, if you're paraplegic, would you want to live in space? Would that be more comfortable for you than living on the ground? So, so we're at the same time looking for solutions to these problems, right? The space radiation, we have to solve that problem. That's a very weight-intensive solutions that we have right now. Yeah, space radiation is a big problem. There are also problems that we're testing now from the point of view of psychology. For example, when you fly to the moon, you see Earth, and Earth is substantial size there, and you can see it always, and you can get back in a day. If you fly to Mars, and all you see around you, Earth becomes a little tiny dot, Mars is a tiny little dot, and there's this space around you, right? And if you're in this tiny capsule for months, what is the psychological effect on this? When your mind, some psychologists say, your mind is so used to the Earth, the gravity, that you know, would you have some kind of panic attacks? Or so these are also psychological issues are very important. We'll overcome this eventually, right? But it will take time.
Thanks. The next question kind of ties in is, what are the main challenges of space exploration going forward? And you've talked about some of the physical ones. What do you see as some of the other ones?
Yeah, so we need some new technologies because we need to get to places quickly. It takes us now, okay, 7 months to Mars. That's not so bad. But you start going maybe to Titan, the moon of Saturn. That takes 10, 12, 13 years. Uranus, Neptune, very far away. At the current speeds, we can get to the nearest star. If we don't discover life in our solar system, we have to go to another solar system. The nearest star, Alpha Centauri, is 4.2 light years away. With the current speeds, which are amazing, you know, we're talking about 100,000 kilometers per hour, right? That seems tremendous. 10 kilometers per second, right? We would go, you know, we can cover vast distances very fast. It seems tremendous, but if you're talking about going to another star because we discovered through telescope and spectroscopy that there's possible life there, well, that's not so easy because the current speeds will take us about, I don't know, 50,000 years to get there. That's a difficult proposition.
Okay, the next question says, ask about autonomous robots versus human, which I know is a big issue. And a subject to debate, is there a significant advantage of a human or versus teleoperated robots in space?
Yes, that's an excellent question. And yeah, and the answer to this is actually, it's a very difficult problem. What should humans do and what should robots do? And there are very heated discussions about it. And there are some people say, no, we'll send only robots, forget humans, right? And then just make them more and more intelligent. Yeah, there's some merit in this because as you're struggling to, this is like the iPhone issue, right? If you make the engineers, programmers all these scientists, smart people, give them very difficult problem. Now you start getting the inventions, robots are getting smarter, right? And then you have, I mean, there are a lot of things that we do in our daily life. Siri was discovered on a space program because the astronauts, in certain situations, they cannot press the button. If there's an emergency, you could use voice commands, right? These kind of things. So this is great, but humans are excellent at a lot of things, especially the autonomous reactions of humans. We don't even know how smart we are. When we drive a rover on Mars and we see a black spot there in front of it, if you're a human, you see, oh, that's a shadow from this rock, right? And that's based on years and years of experience. Our mind, we don't even think that, oh, obviously that's a shadow. For a rover or machine, that's not so clear. Is it a big hole? Is it a crevice? Can I fall in there? Or what is it? So now you would have to think, oh, there's a rock. What is the position of the sun? Oh, it's most likely will be a shadow. Is the shadow compatible with the size of rock? And now you start, these are very difficult things to figure out. Of course, we have now machine learning. So that eventually will get simpler. But on Mars, in our bases, there will be a lot of jobs for robots. There will be a lot of jobs for humans. And as I said, eventually humans have to start spreading into other parts of the solar system. It's for species preservation and other reasons. Every mission will have the autonomous robots helping humans. And autonomy is something very hot. Autonomy meaning that the machine makes the decisions on its own without human interaction. We have to have a lot of it now, because as we fly farther, for example, even Mars, when we land, it takes 11 minutes for the radio signal to get to our robot, right? So let's say the rover is moving and it sees a huge crevice into which would fall, right? So it sends us the picture, right? We see, oh my God, stop, right? So we see this, we interpret it, and then we send a command. So it's 22 minutes later, and that's only Mars. It takes us hours to other planets, right? So autonomy is very important. Thinking robots and interpreting their environment are very important.
So I'll turn to a question that unfortunately neither you nor I are qualified to answer, but I'll ask people to email me and I'll get it to the right people. The question is, which specific office assists those strong STEM students who are interested in an engagement with NASA? I mean, you've already heard that Art is willing to talk to you. So I'll volunteer his time cheerfully since he already has. If you're interested in learning more about that, please send an email to me, h.thomas@miami.edu. And even though I can't help you, I can gather anybody who's interested and find out who would be useful to contact. So again, any students at who are interested in these sorts of things, contact me at h.thomas@miami.edu, and I will get it on with you. I think we really only have, there's a number of good questions, but I think we really only have time for one more. And this will be particularly appropriate for our partners, but I might also expand it. So do you have any message for Polish American young adults, and I'll say for any American young adults or young adults anywhere, about how space exploration careers can help continue the cultural and scientific legacy of Copernicus, obviously the greatest, well, I'm a medievalist, so I sort of put Copernicus on a pedestal, but to continue that legacy, whether one is Polish or not.
Yeah, well, as I said, first of all, the conquering of space is not only done with engineers and programmers, but it's an infrastructure, right? you have to, maybe if you're a political science major and you like space, well, advocate space programs, right? If you're a biologist, help us define what life is, even. Even just the definition of what is life is not so straightforward, right? Somebody will say, okay, what is life? Well, it's something that moves, maybe something that can procreate, something that can multiply, something that maybe has metabolism, right? Inhales, exhales, eats food, excretes, right? All of these, oh, okay. So then somebody else will come and say, oh, yeah, I understand. That's a great definition. How about cars? It breathe breathe oxygen, right, through the intake. Then they have, there's a metabolism in the engine. They move, right? They have definite surface area in which they are confined. So you can give counterexamples, even such things as, philosophical definition of life. And how do you build an instrument to detect something? You have to define what you're looking for, right? If I'm looking for hue, I better know something about hue, because otherwise, how do I find? So there are all these interesting jobs in the space program, and I would just encourage. There was a question about how do you get a job at NASA. If you're a student, I would encourage you to apply for an internship. We have internships every summer. You go to JPL portal and answer, and then you put your resume. You can look also at the open internship jobs. JPL gives maybe 700 internships. It's fairly competitive, I have to admit, but please try. And there are some exciting jobs that you can do.
Well, thanks so much. And I'll end with a series of thanks. One of the unfortunate aspects of a webinar is that you can't get the round of applause that everybody deserves. But I'll start by thanking the audience for coming, particularly people at UM, and we know it's a very busy time of the semester. I'd like to thank our speaker for such a fascinating talk. And I'd like to end by thanking the American Institute, AIPC, and Lady Blanca Rosenstiel for the generous gift that made this series possible. And I want to assure you that it will be the first of many really interesting programs. And so with that, I will bid everyone good day, and have a great
I wanted
afternoon.
to thank you. I want to thank you for the invitation. This was thrilling to be on your program, and I want to thanks Lady Blanca for inviting me to dance Polonaise. She taught me how to dance Polonaise. Polonaise is a Polish national dance, as opposed to a lot of people think that polka is our national, but polka, I think it's a Czech dance. It's not a Polish dance. So now I dance Polonaise. Maybe I'm the only, or one of a few engineers who can dance Polonaise. That's my new fame.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed your lecture. If I would be younger, I would be starting right now to go at least to the moon, which I always admire from the far, when I was still in Poland, I didn't say. Here, maybe I don't have that much time to look at it. But I thank you very much, and I'm so pleased that you were able to join us. And your lecture was fantastic. I know many young Polish people that were very much interested. Among them is a young man who lives in Miami, who said he is going to the Mars for sure. So I am sure that
Right.
you are going to hear from him. Thank you so much. Thank you also to the University of Miami and the president and you. And I mean, it's a wonderful venture for us, for our American Institute of Polish Culture, to have joined this group. Wonderful University of Miami. We are looking forward to many, many different sessions and many lectures. Thank you so very much. See you on the board. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. And as I said also in the comment, I guess that our 100th anniversary at the American Institute of Polish Culture, we will have to organize the ball which will be called International and Interplanetary Polonaise Ball in space.
Oh.
So thank you, Arthur, for making all.
So is it okay if I bring some aliens with me?
Absolutely. That will be the theme.
Something to
Thank
look
you.
forward to.
Thank
Okay,
you
and
very much.
Thank you.
thank you. And on that note, we will have our usual abrupt ending to the whole webinar, but we'll talk separately.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye to all. Thank you.